justice for Liam Cameron. Ben Whitaker, you're a fraud and a cheat. After all your big mouthing off, eh? You're just a weapon of the week. If I still did it, you'd be weapon at week, eh? I'm 54-year-old. I'd flog you myself from what I've just seen, eh? Liam Cameron, well done. You won that fight, kid. You won that fight. You mind them getting it a draw. You won it. Pop, pop, bang.
Hey, listen, before we jump into all things Beterbiev, Bivol, I just want to say we're going to have a show on October 18th. So the day before the Ohara Davis versus Adam Azim card, we're going to have the Warren show, right? At York Hall on Friday. I'm nervous because Courtney Bennett fights for the Southern Area title against Nick Webb in like his 7th or 8th fight. That's crazy, right? And welcome back to the number one podcast in the sport that just keeps giving reality checks out left, right, and center. This sport's so cruel sometimes, isn't it? But if it wasn't the way it was, we wouldn't reward these guys the way they have been rewarded this last weekend. Where do you even start? Where do you start? Guys, where do you start? Let's start with the main event. Because it's been a frustrating night in many ways, but, you know, this is boxing, as people say. Look, I'm just going to... Elephant in the room. It goes like this. If you thought Beterbiev won, you probably have valid arguments for that, okay? If you thought Bivol won, you probably have valid arguments for that, okay? And if you thought it was a draw, you probably have valid arguments for that. There you go. That's the podcast. Done. Everyone happy now? Yeah? Your life can carry on now. Whatever opinion you had on that fight, you have an argument for it, right? And you can debate it, but just understand that your opinion doesn't matter because there were 3 men at ringside whose opinion did matter. And they said Artur Beterbiev won. That's how the sport works. We accept the decision of the judges because you being sat at home on a sofa isn't going to change it. You tweeting your anger isn't going to change it. You arguing with 50 different people because you want them to believe your point isn't going to change it. There were 3 men that decided Artur Beterbiev won, therefore Artur Beterbiev won. And maybe it's time for us to just take a step back collectively as boxing fans and go, what are we in this for? Are we in this to watch people fight and a winner and a loser are decided? Or do we want to control everything? It's about our opinion. We matter more than the people involved in this. Us, the people with zero accountability for anything we do in boxing right now. Our opinion counts. Not the people who make a living from this. Not the people who are specifically selected for this. Not the people who are trained for this. Not the 3 judges who have to go on courses, who have to sit in rooms with other judges so they can calibrate and make sure that they're not messing up. Oh, no, not those guys. Just the guy that sits there listening to Andy Lee tell him what to think. Oh, he's the guy that knows, right? That's the expert. That's the genius. Wow. The level of, the combination, I should say, of arrogance and ignorance amongst boxing fans is painful. And I'm not here, like I said, if you have an opinion, that's cool. I have an opinion, right? It's not the right answer. It's just my opinion. If you want to believe it, you can. And if you don't have to. And I respect that too. I'm of the view that Beterbiev won, right? That's it. I think Beterbiev won. I'm not going to waste my time scoring rounds because I'm not paid to score rounds. I'm not giving the world free labor for no. What? I can't say I'm not giving the world free labor for nothing while doing a podcast. Sorry. I'm such an idiot. But let me just snap back into being serious again. Here's the thing. When I watched that fight, I was like, it was close. And the headlines I take from that fight are, number one, as I've been saying episode after episode on this podcast, Dimitri Bivol is terrible going backwards. If you can back Bivol up consistently, and this is what Canelo should have done, you can beat him. Yeah? You can beat him and you can beat him up. It's not hard. I think the Beterbiev that fought Marcus Brown would have smoked Bivol. This version, this 39-year-old version, and anyone that is either of that age or has been that age knows nothing's quite as sharp. No matter what supplements you take, no matter what you have, you become aware that you're not what you used to be. And that was the fight for Beterbiev, where he was like, I'm not what I used to be. Because the old Beterbiev would have just smoked him. Like, I'm now of that view that Bivol's not what people made him out to be. He just isn't. So that's the headline for me. Like, we saw Beterbiev age in that fight. And that's another Anthony Yard scalp, I guess. People just aren't the same after fighting him. The other thing was, obviously we talked about Bivol not being good going backwards. Also, doesn't really have that deterrent kind of pop. Like, if you look at that fight, he wasn't really putting a dent in Beterbiev. Like, he couldn't discourage Beterbiev. It was just Beterbiev's legs just couldn't keep him in the positions where he liked to be. But I did enjoy the fact that all Beterbiev did is I want to be right in front of you all the time. And that means you're going to have to work. And Bivol looked like he was fighting for his life in there. That's exactly what he looked like. Now, if you listen to the Sky commentary or the DAZN commentary, you'll have a completely different view. And I can understand why, because they were giving Beterbiev zero credit. On God, on both broadcasts. If anyone listened to the others, I think ESPN was just as bad as well, actually. The only one I didn't see was TNT. So when you've got guys literally, like, this is Barry Jones. Bivol takes a breath in. Oh my God, that's class. The way he inhaled that air. I'm hoping it was pure oxygen because that was so class. Oh my God, he's exhaled. That's a world-class exhalation. Wow. And then there's Darren Barker. Do you know what? He's been breathing that way for a long time. It's just a real classy way to breathe. You know, he's nailed this respiration thing. He's a world-class respirator. Oh my God. And then Andy Lee coming with he's doing wonders for his glycolysis. Oh my God, his glycolysis. He's managing to generate 2 or 3 ATP instead of just the 1 or 2 that he used to do. Oh my God, this is magic. This is the genius of Dimitri Bivol. That's the commentary you got. And Chris Mannix was just as bad, although you couldn't hear him over the wood in his mouth. It was just terrible, guys. Like, I think we need to freshen up our commentary teams because we're bored of Andy Lee. Andy Lee became a boxing genius literally because he helped Tyson Fury beat Deontay Wilder. Wins that are diminishing in significance with every passing year. So why are we calling this guy a boxing genius? What, Paddy Donovan, really? Yeah? That's the boxing genius? He's not. Like, we need to get back to guys like Carl Froch. And to his credit, even a Tony Bellew is more effective at commentary than these guys. Like, the commentary we get given is nonsense. And what these guys are doing, on God, you know when you don't know about a topic, but you're meant to know about a topic, so you start just blagging it, right? And hope that no one calls you out on it. That's what these guys are doing. They are just blagging. It's like if you've ever been out with a woman and you've told her you're into cars, and she goes, oh, what car is that? And you just make up a name. Yeah, and a whole backstory in the hope that she'll just buy it and you can move on. That's what these guys are doing. Like, I don't want to call it imposter syndrome because they are impersonating good commentators. These guys are not a patch on guys like Jim Watt. It is actually terrible what we're listening to. And the reason it's dangerous is it's forming a lot of opinions amongst boxing fans. So boxing fans think that, I came to this conclusion myself. But if you're listening to the commentary, then ultimately you can't think of anything outside of that kind of commentator position. And they have a term for it, don't they? It's like the anchoring bias. The thing you hear determines everything that comes after it. So if someone's telling you that Bivol's winning, you're inclined to believe he is. And then everything you do is with that in mind. If someone tells you Beterbiev is winning, you're going to be inclined to believe that. And people don't understand that we have these cognitive biases. and that the decision you reach isn't based on anything other than what you've been told to. And I know people say, I've been watching boxing for years. Whatever. Well, just whatever. Who hasn't? Do you know what I mean? My mum has too. But she's not out here tweeting her opinion on everything. But let's just talk about the fight, yeah, because that's really what you're here for. It was always going to be that, wasn't it? It was going to be who could impose their style, right? We're used to Beterbiev being a high work rate guy, staying in your face, working off the jab, the double jab, and then letting the shots go off of that. And that's generally worked. And it worked earlier in his career because he had more energy and more enthusiasm for getting stuck in. And you can see he's 39 and maybe the knee is not as compliant as it was, and he had to take this money, so he had to find a way to old man Dimitri Bivol. Maybe that was what was agreed. We're just going to old man him, and that means we're going to keep hitting him, but we're going to hit him hard enough that he's not going to want to come forward, right? Fair enough tactics, I get it. And if you're Bivol, you're hoping he gets old and that you can kind of just bounce in and out, work, pepper him, and discourage him, slowly breaking him down and slow him down. But all of this is easier said than done. What kept Bivol in the fight, in my opinion, was his ability to stay lateral. That give him credit. The fact that he's able to do that for so long, credit where credit's due. But I feel that's going to come in at a price for his long-term career. I think fights like this take a little bit out of you because you're into that proverbial overdraft, just trying to stay above water against a guy whose sole goal is to drown you. That's all Beterbiev wanted to do. And so you had that chess game of Bivol staying lateral and Beterbiev using his footwork, which is massively underrated, by the way, to just stay in front of him. And I think I said this in the preview show. It's going to be that kind of Golovkin type performance where he's just always in front of you, which means you don't get time to breathe. You have to stay in that concentration bubble for the whole fight. And he was hitting Bivol hard enough. You could hear the shots. Anyone that says they weren't hard shots, you could hear those shots and you're like, oh, that's nasty. And that was his plan for the whole fight. And he was able to do that to varying degrees of success depending on where you were in the fight. I thought he had it pretty easy in the first 4 rounds. Others didn't, but I thought he had it pretty easy in the first 4 rounds, pushing Bivol back. I think in the middle 4, Bivol comes back into it. And then last 4, I think Bivol had something. Beterbiev came back. It was that kind of fight. It had ebbs and flows to it, which is what you expect when two guys are fighting for undisputed, right? So I don't think there was anything major tactically that either guy could have done differently. I found it odd, actually. And this is my problem with commentators now, right? We've watched Artur Beterbiev for years. That's not a guy that's going to slip, dip, roll. He's not going to do that, right? Guard up, feet in and out, and he'll come straight back off of that. That's how he boxes. That's how he defends, right? That's how we've always seen him defend. So why would people like Barry Jones be telling him to slip, dip, roll, all this stuff? Like, Beterbiev doesn't really feint either. He just throws shots. So why would you create this fantasy land for a 39-year-old guy and try and turn him into a Roy Jones or a James Toney instead of just talking about the man that he is? It's almost like they do no research into these guys. But it's impossible not to have done your research. It's Beterbiev, for God's sake. And I felt the same with Bivol. Although I think they gave him a bit of a squeeze. But I'm looking at that like, why are you asking Bivol to do stuff he doesn't normally do? He's not a guy that's just going to hold his ground and feint and do. He's not. His style is to float in and out, catch you rushing in. But Beterbiev doesn't fall for those traps. As I said earlier, he's so familiar with the Soviet style that he's never going to drown like that. And so you had this fight of two guys who understood each other's styles well because they're well-educated boxers. And it turned into a fight that wasn't that exciting, although it was compelling to an extent. But it wasn't a patch on Anthony Joshua versus Daniel Dubois. Right? It just wasn't. And as a result of that, I wonder if we need to see a rematch. I really do. So here's why I don't want the rematch. And I said the same thing about Tyson Fury. For me, if undisputed means something, after it's done, unless it's a draw, Once that fight is done, everyone should go their separate ways, because that's what Undisputed should be. Right, one man, one woman has reached the top of the mountain. They now need to seek a fresh challenge. Rematching two guys that fought for Undisputed feels a bit hollow for me. Like, what are they fighting for this time? Undisputed again? For what? Right? Beterbiev's in the books now. He's the guy that's undisputed. Just vacate the belts and retire. That's the best thing Artur Beterbiev can do for boxing, is vacate the belts and retire. But he doesn't have to listen to me. But maybe he wants to fight again, or maybe he wants to go up to cruiserweight. And I think he'd be good at cruiserweight. But I don't want to see the rematch. Just like I don't want to see the Fury Usyk rematch. Like, I don't care. I want the belts to be out there so we can create new stars and we can find a new monster that can now become undisputed. In fact, I don't even want undisputed anymore. Just let people fight each other. That's where I'm at with this, because we had all of that build-up, yeah? Dmitry Bivol and Artur Beterbiev on this collision course. They'll fight for undisputed at some point, and they did, and it wasn't worth the wait. That's all. It just wasn't worth the wait. There were far more exciting fights on the night, far more compelling stories on the night. I just don't believe British fans, in terms of like that wider appeal, are going to care about two Russian guys that can barely speak English. Like, why should they? You know? And luckily those guys don't speak English, because I'm sure that like Bivol's kind of domestic challenges would have been front page news had that been the case. But look, I'm not going to speak about that just because, I mean, that's for him to deal with. But overall, as an undisputed fight, as an event, we don't need that again. And anyone that says we do, man, you need to get outside, get some sunshine on you, some vitamin D, go and touch some grass or something, because your life is clearly lacking. So let's talk about the second biggest story of the night. And my inboxes, my DMs, everything filled to bursting point with people saying, yeah, your mate ain't that good, is he? Like, wow. Wow. I don't know what to say to that, because we can't win in this sport. Ben Whitaker in his 8th fight fought Liam Cameron. Now, if you're brainless and maybe you didn't finish school and you worked in Quick Fit in year 11, cool. I understand why this doesn't make sense to you. But Ben Whitaker in his 8th fight fought a 15-year veteran. That's what Liam Cameron is. Liam Cameron is a seasoned veteran in this boxing game. People say he's got 6 losses, and I'm like, that's not far off what Joshua's got. Boxers have losses. Do you know what I mean? Fury has a loss. Like, people have losses on their records. Unless you're Usyk or Beterbiev, you've got losses. Loma's got losses. So what does that mean? The fact is, all the things that Liam Cameron has hold true whether he wins or loses. Right? Liam Cameron's had 20 odd fights spread over that time. He's been in wars. He's been in wars, and he also knows how to take people out. He knows how to hurt people. Right? That's Liam Cameron. Liam Cameron also fought to a split decision with Lyndon Arthur. Lyndon Arthur's a veteran. Lyndon Arthur's been through the wars. And people made fun of Lyndon Arthur, and they said Lyndon Arthur's washed because Liam Cameron took him the distance over 10 rounds. And I was like, people don't understand how good Liam Cameron is. And I can understand why Lyndon Arthur would tweet, oh, so now is Ben Whitaker washed? Because he's basically saying, you guys said I was done because I supposedly struggled with Liam Cameron. And here's Ben Whitaker. So I understand where Lyndon's coming from. And now people need to really put some respect to Liam Cameron's name. But I've always believed Liam could do that. If Team Whitaker had rung me when this fight was offered and said, we've been offered Liam Cameron, I said, don't take him. I said, don't take him. You're not going to want to go to those places he will take you. Not yet anyway. Not after 8 fights. There's still loads to work on. Focus on working on those things. Then you go after guys like Liam. Liam's good. Liam's really good, by the way. You don't win the ABA title he won in 2009 beating Scotty Cardle in the quarters. Was it Scotty Cardle in the quarters? Oh, man. No. Tommy Langford in the quarters. Scotty Cardle in the semis. And Dudley O'Shaughnessy in the final. When Dudley was the next in line. The next British boxing superstar. And then to beat Dudley again in the GB Championships, the Four Nations. You don't do that if you can't box. You don't do that if you're not tough. You don't do that if you're not good. People forgot that. They hadn't done their research. None of the commentators had done enough of their research to really understand who Liam Cameron was. I've said it on many episodes. If I was in trouble in Sheffield, I would ring Liam Cameron and go, "Killer, I need help, mate." And as soon as he showed up, I'd feel all right. That's the respect I have for Liam Cameron. He's to Sheffield what Darryl Williams is to South London. Just there's certain guys that have that energy, which is, I'm prepared to go to hell. Are you? And that's what he brought to Ben Whitaker's front yard. And it was probably 2 fights too soon for Ben. And he'd admit that, because I don't think Ben's made the adjustment fully from amateur to pro. And so how would I summarize that adjustment? It's the ability to do more with less. So can I hurt you more with one punch than I was with two? And at the moment, if you look at what Ben did, especially in the first 3 rounds, a lot of it was like good. Like from a cinematic, just looking at it perspective, really good. Pap, 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 da, 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 pap. Nice little uppercuts, spearing jabs, all the sort of stuff you want to see. But he hasn't figured out how to really unleash his power. And I was watching it going, is he engaging those back muscles? Is he engaging the glutes the way he should? His hips always seem to be too high when he was punching. You know, and against guys like Liam who are tough, you've got to get every ounce of torque, and where you can get gravity to help you want to do that. But I was watching, and it was just small things like Ben's elbows on his straight punches a little bit too low for me, probably about 2 inches too low. So that tells me he's not getting full extension. So he's missing out on that final whip at the end. And then it's also just that nous on the inside, that ability to get your forearm in the right place or your elbow in the right place, to make it uncomfortable, put your head in the right place. All these sorts of things that we call ringcraft, that you learn over time and you learn being around veterans. And look, let me just sidebar this and give you a story for context. So in the last year, I've talked to 2 kids who want to turn pro at light heavyweight, right? And I gave both the same advice. I said, look, what you really want to do, you want to find a guy that's done it before. Go and find Crawford Ashley. Go and find Clinton Woods, right? Go and find those guys. If you can find Dennis Andrews, find Dennis Andrews. Okay? And just say, listen, I'm willing to pay for your time. Yeah? Just school me on what I've got to come. Yeah? Little moves, tricks of the trade, yeah? And you come with a list of questions like, how do I, all the terms we use so glibly, but we don't really understand, like, how do I old man someone? Or how do I know when I'm being old man? How do I, make things rough on there? How can I do stuff to make him uncomfortable? And I would spend time with those guys. How do I train? What's the adjustment from, the 5-fight novice to the 10-fight novice to the 15-fight prospect? Do you know what I mean? Like, how do I make these changes? And I would pay for that time, because it's going to save you so many mistakes. I don't believe either of them got hold of those guys. If you don't do that, this is what happens after 8 fights. And like you guys know, I'm a big Ben Whitaker fan. If Ben hasn't spent time around the OGs and the vets, just sitting and picking their brain and going, what can I do more? Where can I improve? Where do I elevate? Then someone else will do that to him. Ben's not going to reach his potential until he's around those OGs, because those OGs have watched him. Yeah? And they're watching him through the lens of, I was in his position. What would I have done to him if that was me in my 22nd fight against him in his 8th? Would I have eaten him up alive? How would I have done it? Cool, let me share that with him. I'd go looking for that knowledge because that's what's going to unlock the potential. Because otherwise you're just in the same room with the same people with the same ideas and you're not growing, right? That's the truth. You're not growing. And Ben's still too rare of a talent. Like, think about this. He decided to dog it out with Liam Cameron. He's like, yeah, I'm going to dog it out. I'm not going to get on my toe. I'm going to dog it out. Show everyone that I can dog it out. That was his mentality. I'm always going to give him kudos for that. But if we really break this fight down, Liam wasn't wrong when he said he's Sheffield's Beterbiev. They post up the same way. I'm not saying they're the same level, so don't get this twisted. But they post up in a similar way. So they both work off that high guard and they count the touches. Yeah? They feed it on their right forearm, they feed it on their left, come straight back. Or they feed it on the left, feed it on the right, come straight back. And what that enables Liam to do is just keep the pressure on you. So if you're having a bad day at the office, he's just always there in front of you. And people sleep on how good his chin is. Like, resilient as hell. So he's going to take the body shots, he's going to take the uppercuts and just stand in front of you and go, is that it? Is that it? And he'll keep doing that until your morale starts to dip and you're like, actually, I've hit him with my hardest shot. He's still there. That's what Liam does. And then he goes, right, cool, my turn. And he's got enough pop in his shots for it to be uncomfortable. Yeah. And if you notice, he throws those really annoying shots that they're not really straight and they're not really a hook, but they're quite loopy and they'll just catch you. You're, man, this guy's got it. And then just when you think he's just a headhunter, goes to the body. Liam can box. I hope people come away from Riyadh season going, Liam Cameron can box. And I'm going to give Ben credit. Like, when Ben kept it long, he looked good. All he lacked was that final bit of torque, that bit of that extra 10% that turns a hard punch into a horrible punch. But he can work on that. Yeah. So up until the incident that we're going to talk about, it's a compelling fight. Ben starts off, doing what we expect. Like, okay, Ben's in the lead here. Liam starts to bring it back. Liam starts to suck him in, starts to get him on the ropes, starts to just draw him in and say, let's go to war. And Ben's like, cool. And everyone knows that once the fight gets into that kind of zone, it's hard to pull yourself away from it. And when I look at that, I'm like, did Ben need to do that? Did that take anything out of Ben? I don't know. It wouldn't have been what I would have done, but then I wouldn't have taken the fight in the first place. I'd have had the Louis Edmondson fight. Why not? Do you know what? Ironically enough, I would have had the fight with Ezra. I would have taken that. Is it Ezra Thompson? I forget his surname. I'd have had the fight with Ezra. Because Ezra's not as experienced, he's not as hardened, and he's not as canny as Liam Cameron. The Ezra fight would have been easier. I don't know why he didn't take it. Or maybe it wasn't offered. So let's talk about Ropegate, right? So first things first, those ropes are way too loose. We shouldn't be having world-class events with mediocre ropes like that. But it's on the fighters to discover that. I'm surprised no one called that out, because what should happen on fight day, you get there, you go to mate, can I just jump in the ring quickly? I want to feel the ring. And so you're going to move around the ring. I want to feel the canvas. Is it spongy? Is it hard? Are there any soft spots in there? I mean, you basically want to, what's the consistency of the ring? You want the ring to be perfect, right? But you also want to prepare yourself. It's a bit spongy. Whatever. But you do that. And then you test the ropes. So you'll run the ropes for a bit just to feel them. Okay. And sometimes ropes are super tight. Sometimes they're super loose. But the fact that no one called that out would be a worry. Or maybe they did and the organizers refused to change. I don't know. But when you have ropes like that, it's usually an accident waiting to happen. So I'll give you my interpretation of what I saw. And I've done that annoying thing of going through the thing frame by frame. Ben and Liam end up in a clinch, right? And if you look, Liam's right arm is pushing Ben back. Ben plants his feet and tries to lean on the ropes, right? So let me not use any energy trying to hold Liam up. Let him burn all of his energy. I'm just going to relax, fall on the ropes. Referee's going to break it up. That's what you're hoping for, right? Because you've got I think he had the underhooks, which forced Liam's arm up into his face. And what Liam then does is he drives forward with his head. Not recklessly, but he just comes forward and his head's coming up. And you can see Ben's face and he's pulling back because there's a head there and he doesn't want to get headbutted, right? So as he's pulling back, and Liam's not relenting, by the way, Liam's driving forward, Ben's pulling back. So all of the collective weight lands on that rope and the rope gives. And Ben goes over the top, right? And Liam's driving that hard forward that it just drove him over the top. So I don't believe for 1 second Ben threw himself over the top rope. I don't believe he threw Liam over the top rope. I don't, like, people are saying that's what he did. He jumped out the ring. There's all sorts of... Why are boxing fans so stupid sometimes? And feel free to tweet me and answer. Why are boxing fans so stupid? Like, I don't know. So anyway, so they land, and you can see the first expression Ben Whitaker has is a grimace of discomfort. Can't say it's pain. He doesn't look good after that, right? He doesn't look good. Maybe his ankle hit something on the landing because there was equipment there, right? So maybe he's hit something. So now at that point, think about this. If you've hurt your ankle, right? And you've got Liam Cameron coming at you, you don't want to be facing Liam with one leg. And I don't think it's safe to face Liam with one leg. Especially, 8 fights in your career. Like, if it was a world title and, these were two veterans, I'd get it because you'd have ways around it. And if they're like, yo, he can't continue, fair enough. Now, we're not really going to know the extent of the injury, right? And I'm not really going to speculate. You just have to take what's given publicly. So if he was injured and couldn't continue, fair enough. If someone has audio of them telling Ben to stay down, yeah? Or if someone has evidence, because remember, everyone had their cameras out. Watch the thing all over again. Everyone's got their camera phones out. There's no way, if there's anything untoward, there is no way it wasn't captured on someone's camera. So tell me, where was it where someone said, stay down? Someone's got to show me that Whitaker was looking for a way out. I can understand someone saying, I don't have two legs. It's not safe for me to continue. Nah, I understand that. If he sprained his ankle, if he's bruised it, whatever he's done where he can't put weight on it, I get that. If he's done his back, whatever. If you're not the person you were before you fell over, then I can understand the fight not carrying on. That's not bottling it. And why did people... I don't get it, man. Like, this has been quite a deflating day. Like, as a boxing community, we've let ourselves down this weekend. Guys, you don't take up the sport when you're 9, 10, 11, wherever it is you take it up, right? Train over a decade before anyone even sees you. You don't go through all of that. Spar kids 4 or 5 years older than you. Spar kids 20 kilos heavier than you. You don't go through all of that pain and to quit. By the time someone gets to the pros, especially if they've done it the schoolboy, junior, senior, into the pro kind of way, you've had so many chances to quit. And if you haven't quit by then, you're never going to quit. So when people talk about Ben Whitaker quitting, it's embarrassing. And I've seen a lot of professional boxers or ex-professional boxers say he quit. And these are also people with dubious characteristics of their own, both in their career and in their lives. And you're like, why would you say that when you know what the effect of that is on a boxer? Why would you say someone quit? He didn't need to quit. Like, it's not like he was 4-0 down on the cards and he'd been dropped 3 or 4 times. He hadn't. It was uncomfortable in there, but when you fight Liam Cameron, it's going to be uncomfortable. Who's to say that in the second half of the fight, Liam hadn't worn off and Ben hadn't come on? We don't know. But when people say that he quit, that's a very odd way to quit. Because remember, anything could have happened. Or going over those ropes, anything could have happened. He could have broken his neck, dislocated his shoulder. Why would you take that? That's not quitting. And you know, when I say to people, sometimes I don't feel sorry for boxers. These are the moments. Like, I'll make a note of all the people who said he quit, and then when they get knocked out, when something happens to them, let the pile-in happen. People should have had the empathy to go, well, would I want to carry on if I was physically impaired? No, the answer is no. If you can live to fight another day, why not live to fight another day? That's exactly what I would expect from someone who's smart and is looking to manage their career. So I don't like the quit talk. I don't think any of us are qualified to ever talk about quitting when we've mostly lived our lives afraid of being great. We've mostly lived our life in the comfort of mediocrity. We've mostly lived our life in the comfort of someone else paying our salaries. We're probably not qualified to talk about courage and quitting and being brave when most of us aren't. That guy's out there to be shot at. He knows the hell he would get if he decided to quit. He knows that. Boxers would rather get knocked out than quit. Because quit is a stain that never leaves you. You don't believe me? Look at Kell Brook, one of Sheffield's greatest, and people still say he quit against Errol Spence. And this is kind of that duality that fans get annoyed by, right? Fans hate the fact that it's okay for boxers to say people quit, but when fans say someone quit, then everyone in boxing jumps on them. I don't think it's okay for anyone to say that. Unless you hear for certain someone say, no, I don't want it anymore. Then yeah, at that point you can go, yeah, he's throwing the towel in. Fine. But nah, I don't think Ben did. But I do think there's a lot of work that Team Whitaker have to do. Now, how they go about doing that, entirely up to them. I don't even have the blueprint right now, as I record this. But it definitely starts with being around the old timers and just picking their brain. Because you could save yourself 5 years of bad decisions by just being around those OGs. They know the game. And when guys like Clinton Woods were fighting, his Liam Cameron was Glencoff Johnson. Remember that. His Liam Cameron was Glenn Johnson, a guy who moved up from middleweight. I think he'd fought Bernard Hopkins at middleweight, moved up to light heavyweight. And we know what he did, and we know what he did to Roy Jones Jr. So that would be my advice, man. Seek out the old timers. Yeah, don't make the mistakes. It's not worth it. So can we just talk about Fabio Wardley versus Frazer Clarke? Now, I was always of the view that Fabio would win the rematch. It's not that I don't think Frazer's any good. I just don't think his body is fit for purpose anymore. I think the GB system broke him. And I think he's maybe kept some things under wraps that we don't know about. But I also believe he was hurt. And I think both men were badly hurt in that first fight. And the fact that we're having it within 12 months was always going to be a worry. And so I wonder, when Fabio stopped him in the first round and like the injuries were grotesque, you got a hole in your head, it looks like your jaw's twisted. I looked at that and I went, are we sure that there weren't minor fractures in that jaw? And over camp, maybe, more damage was done. And then come fight night, it just wasn't as strong as it needs to be. Because that looked bad. Not only did that look bad, but that looked like you got to take Frazer off the bus for a while. Do you know what I mean? He's got to spend like a year and a half getting that healed up. And has he got that kind of time at his age? I don't know. But not only that, but how far are you really going to go? Because like for all the things we're saying, that's still Fabio Wardley. That's not Del Boy. That's not Dillian. That's not Zhilei Zhang. That's not Anthony Joshua. That's not Daniel Dubois. That's Fabio Wardley. if this is where you're starting to struggle as an Olympian, is this really the sport for you? I don't know. But these are some really uncomfortable questions that Fraser Clark has to deal with. And I feel for him because Fraser's a really, really nice guy, gentle giant, lovely, funny guy, interesting guy. You don't, when you're around him, you just want the best for him. And the sad thing is, maybe the best for him is to do something else. I don't know, but I saw that and I was just like, man, what a way to go out. And that clip of him just kind of in the corner being counted, heartbreaking. But what a win for Fabio. Like, what do you do with Fabio Wardley now? Because he's handled everyone at British level, and I don't think European level does anything for him. So do you put him in with someone who's a bit more seasoned, like a Michael Hunter? Do you put him in with a Joe Joyce? Do you give him a name now? Like, right, let's give you a name that will catapult you to that kind of main event stages where you can fight for a belt. Because I don't think there's much more that he can do. He's done everything that's been asked of him, which is impressive. And I think another name I've been high on since I first met him, I think 6 years ago, over 6.5 years ago. And I was saying back then, I think this Fabio Wardley kid's lovely and I want to see him crack it. Because I think I said at the time, there's money in Fabio Wardley. A lot of money. Hearn should have kept hold of him. Because, yeah, there's a lot of money in Fabio. He's got that thing that David Hayes got, which is everyone's got a mate like Fabio. Wherever you are in the country, you got a mate like Fabio Wardley. In the same way that everyone had a mate who was a bit like David Hay. And that takes you a long way in this sport. A long, long way in terms of being commercially appealing. But I'm going to close this off and say I hope Fraser heals up. And I hope he starts a future in the sport. Because it's something that he's done since he was young. And this shouldn't be the way that he goes out. You just wonder what life choices he has. But listen, I wish him all the best. Like I said, I can't say a bad word about Fraser Clark. But what a win for Fabio Wardley. Like, if you're going to go on a Riyadh season card, right? That's how you impress the Saudis. Just go and handle business. Don't break a sweat. Back in your changing room before anything. I mean, loads of time to sell advertising. Loads of time for the talking heads to do their thing. He did his job. He made sure that show stayed on time and on schedule. So I'm sure they'll get Fabio in for some more work again. And they pay him well for that. So can I congratulate Sky Nicholson on another win. She's making this whole boxing thing look easy, isn't she? And salute to the trainers. Al Smith, Eddie Lamb, Brad Skeet. Trainers don't get credit enough of the time, so let's salute those guys. What I like about Sky Nicholson, number one, is how mobile she is. Number two, how she uses her long arms to her advantage. Like, I wouldn't want to fight a southpaw like that. Like, that would be so soul destroying. Like, everything's a trap, and you can't help but fall into it. But no, I've enjoyed watching her. I think she's conducted herself well. Like, she's doing women's boxing the way it should be. Look, there've been some suspicions in the week about Raven Chapman's conditioning. Just, this is what's coming to my inbox, my Q&As, and et cetera, and I stand on this point. Until someone fails a drugs test, we can't say they're a cheat. You can say there are suspicions, and, that's an opinion call, and everyone's allowed an opinion. But we can't say someone's a cheat. But, look, I'm happy that Sky won. I don't know what you do if you're her. She talked about fighting, is it Tiara Brown? And I think that'll be a good fight because I think Tiara Brown's needed a fight for a long time. And they've kind of kept her on the sidelines for a while. Not Team Nicholson, but just boxing in general. So I'd like to see that fight happen. Let her get some money, man. Like, I just want money to circulate in the sport. So if she can get a little payday or fighting Sky Nicholson, awesome. Let's keep it moving. But really, really happy for Sky, happy for Ed, happy for the whole iBox crew. And I love the fact that Sky stayed loyal. So she won her world title with those guys and she's never felt the urge to leave. I think she did kind of talk about stuff like, there's still things I need to work on and stuff. That always worries me because that would suggest that there are people in her ear, which I hope is not true. Because, like, Eddie Lamb, if you're going to train in the UK, you're not going to find a better trainer than Eddie Lamb. He's in that top tier of guys. He just doesn't get talked about because he's, as Sugar Knight would say, he's not all up in the videos. all up in the remixes. He doesn't make himself busy like that, and so people don't put him in that bracket. I say the same about Chris Smedley. We don't talk about how good Chris Smedley is, do we? There's a guy who 20 years ago, first wave, puts his 2 boys in the ABA finals. One loses to Amir Khan, one loses to Liam Smith. Not bad company to keep. 5 years later, he gets Liam Cameron. Repeats the same trick. Liam Cameron, ABA champion, one of the best runs you're going to have. Him and Anthony Fowler, best ABA runs in recent history. And he's doing it all over again now, building a new breed of champions. These guys never get talked about enough, never get the opportunities because they're not all up in the media. But we have a good cohort of trainers, and my prayer is that we don't lose these guys. Because when we lose these guys, the quality of British boxing will just go through the floor. The new generation that's coming through, a lot of them just ain't got it. And they'll never have it. They can't learn it. They think they can learn everything on the internet. There's just stuff you can't learn on the internet. It's stuff you learn from being around people who did it before you. That's the best way to learn in the sport. What do you say about Jack Massey versus Jai Opetaia for the IBF title? That was bad. That was bad. That was bad. There wasn't a second in that fight where I felt Jack was confident that he could win. And I don't know what it was. Because here's the thing. In all of the build-up, you looked at Jai Opetaia, he's a smaller guy. Jack can impose himself physically. Come fight night, Jai Opetaia looked like he just finished filming like a Marvel's movie. Like he looked in ridiculous shape on fight night. Jack didn't. Jack looked like an English lad on holiday. Like, when you go to Ocean Beach Club in Marbella or Ibiza, you see Jack Massey's everywhere, right? They haven't quite got the weight cut right. They were probably about 3 weeks too late starting the weight cut. And that's what he looked like in there. But Jack's an experienced boxer. Did he not know Opetaia was a southpaw? Did he not know that Opetaia likes to throw the slashing shots? I don't know what happened in there. But that was as car crash a performance from Jack as you could have. And I don't think that's truly reflective of who Jack Massey is. And if you gave Jack an opportunity to do that again, he'd probably fight differently. But let's not kick him while he's down, because I don't think he's happy that he lost. Let's praise Jai Opetaia, because what he does shouldn't make sense. Right? It shouldn't. I watch it, I'm like, And I'm like, he looks easy to hit. He doesn't look that physically strong. All these things you see from the outside looking in. And then you see the performances, and I'm like, well, if I can see that and they can see that, why is this happening? And you got to take your hat off to him and go, maybe he's just a hard man. And so any of my Australian listeners, please give me the full details on Jai Opetaia, because he looks like a kid who might be hard to beat. Like, we might have to send guys at Reactport or tell Lawrence to get back down to cruiserweight, because I don't think these smaller cruiserweights can compete with him. He reminds me a lot of Demetrius Andrade. Like, they don't throw textbook shots, but they throw these really horrible slashing shots that travel a long way. And it looks like he's got longer arms than people think, because just when people think they're out of range, bam, they get hit. And he's got unorthodox punch sequences as well, so it's very hard to get a read on him. He's just, I didn't want to say it until I'd seen him against someone we could benchmark him against. He's just really, really good at what he does. And I don't know how you get close to him, because he's mobile enough that he can get out the way, but he doesn't give you distance. So you never really have time to reset. He's a menace. Oh my God, Jai Opetaia is a menace. Oh my God. Who was it who tweeted me and said he'd beat all the Brits? He said, I'm now beginning to believe he could beat all of the Brits. Like, he's insanely good. He's too good to be in Australia. He needs to be over here. He'd be a superstar over here. Yeah, I'm a massive Jai Opetaia fan now. Insanely good work. Gave me that kind of, like I said, Demetrius Andrade feel, even like a James DeGale. Like, you know, where it's just unconventional enough where you're like, that shouldn't work, but they make it work. And that's the sign of a guy who's done this for a long time. So kudos to him. I think he's got the winner of Bidham Smith against Gilberto Ramirez. I think he wins that. I think he wins that by stoppage. Like, who do you put him in with? Like, this is a time where Ben Shalom needs to start rebuilding Riakporhe. That's what I'd be doing right now. I'd be rebuilding Riakporhe. I'd say, Rich, we got to get you somewhere, man. Like, just got to get you in position. Got to do something with you for this Opetaia fight. That's what I'd be doing right now. That's the real money fight, if they can rebuild Richard and then they can, you know, do what Hearn did. Just have us rewriting history. What do I mean by that? If you heard the Eddie Hearn press conference after the Beterbiev Bivol fight, where he was just literally crying because that's another one of his assets gone. And he was like, that judge should never box again. And all he was doing was planting the seed for the rematch. Yeah, so he's like, you know, let me create a sense of injustice so that people will want the rematch and the rematch will have more significance. Cynical, but smart, you know. And we need to start doing that with Riakporhe. Like, yeah, Bidham Smith had a bad ankle, whatever, and rebuild him. Because that might be the last hope Britain has against Opetaia. I'm trying to think, what else have we touched on? Eubank Jr. Stopped someone. Conor Benn jumped in the ring, embarrassed himself. Bored of that circus. I think we all are. So I'm not even going to dwell on it. I just think it's embarrassing for boxing that we're even entertaining this. And it goes to show, I guess, boxing fans want to know who the drug cheats are because they love gossip, but they have no real principle against drug cheats. If they did, the energy around this would be completely different. And then there was some other guy who fought. Don't know who he is. Don't know who the opponent was. Didn't watch that. He won. That's all I know. Guy shouldn't be so callous. I don't know. What else do I need to touch on boxing-wise? I don't know. Like, just to summarize that card, Boxer took a massive hit. Like if we look at boxing promotional companies as stocks right now, Boxer plummeted. Massive sell-off. If you had a short position, you're laughing right now. Plummeted. Like prize asset wasn't, I mean, he has a draw on his record now. Second prize asset, unfortunately, had his cheekbone or jaw broken. Now, it wasn't really a good night. Pay-per-view prospect or pay-per-view asset, not filling you with a lot of confidence either. So, yeah, that wasn't a great night for Boxer, for being honest. Probably just worth touching on just a few things in general about these Saudi shows. I think the only British boxer that wasn't in Saudi Arabia on Saturday was Robbie Chapman, because he was in the gym with me. Everyone else seemed to be out there now. Some of those guys, I don't care how this lands, some of those guys are clearly out there sucking on wood, praying that they get an opportunity, right? I think it's cringeworthy that these guys don't understand that the guys who are out there, your Fabio Wardleys, your Ben Whitakers, who else was out there, Jack Masseys, they built their name here first. And there are a lot of guys out there that haven't earned the right to be out there, but they're out there because maybe they look good rubbed down in baby oil, I don't know. But they're definitely not out there based on ability. It was cringeworthy. I maintain this. I wish that money wasted on flights for like most of those clowns that don't add value to the event was actually invested into growing the sport. Because like the way things are going, people aren't even noticing this. We're chipping away value in boxing until we're going to become like the UFC, where the top guys are earning $500,000 a fight. But no one's going to care because they're securing the bag right now. But in a few years' time, who's going to want to see a guy who's been battered so many times? No one is. And we don't talk about that. Just literally everyone is there, man, just ass licking. And I don't know, it doesn't sit right with me. The other thing that doesn't sit right with me is this idea, and it comes back to what I said in the beginning, this idea that boxer X's opinion is greater than other person's opinion. Like I said, there are only 3 people's opinion that mattered in that Beterbiev-Bivol fight, and they gave it to Artur Beterbiev. How about we spend some time trying to understand why they could have done that? Because all I keep reading online is beautiful boxing by so-and-so. It wasn't, right? It wasn't beautiful boxing at all. Hey, that would be a great name for a podcast, though, wouldn't it? Look, on that note, I want to tap out, man. Listen, hope you enjoyed this one. Probably a bit fiery than I'd intended it to be, but a lot happened. A lot happened on Saturday night, and sometimes you have to just kind of share your views the day after. I'll probably feel different on Tuesday anyway, but I won't be recording on Tuesday. But I say take care, guys.